Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. I got a really good question after my last Konmari video. It was my 6-month follow-up kind of craft area tour. I've actually changed things a little bit, but anyway, I wanted to respond to this question that was left, and to paraphrase, they pretty much asked, if you, as you use things up, are you going to replace them? Are you going to rebuy the things? Because one of the criterias of getting rid of things from some minimalists would be if you wouldn't rebuy it again today, then get rid of it. However, there are things that I wouldn't necessarily rebuy, but I don't want to waste them either. I want to use them up. And so I started looking around my craft room and kind of coming up with a couple lists of things that I would rebuy when I use them up and things I wouldn't rebuy if I used them up. But not for the same reasons why that I think the minimalists would think when they're getting rid of something. So I'm not a minimalist. I definitely am purchasing more intentionally and trying to be more intentional with the things around me, but I'm certainly not to the minimalist level that some people are. So the things that I would rebuy, I'll start there, would be any sort of art media. Like I wouldn't rebuy a set of watercolors, but I would rebuy like a tube of burnt sienna or a pastel stick of, whatever color it is, sap green or whatever. I'd rebuy those individual colors that I needed as I ran out. But I wouldn't rebuy, like if I had a set of Winsor Newton paints, I wouldn't rebuy that set. I would just rebuy the colors I needed to refill in those sets. So hopefully that makes sense. I've got a couple bins of watercolor palettes and they absolutely spark joy and I love them, but it's excessive. And so now it's kind of like, okay, I'll buy a couple tubes and not like the entire line again. Even though it might be a better deal to buy the entire line, it's just excessive. It's just too much. And I have like an excessive amount of oil paint still and acrylics because I know that I'll use them eventually. So I don't just want to get rid of them, but I will definitely be a lot more cautious when I buy. Again, I'll just replace that tube that I need, not like buy an entire set, no matter how good of a deal it is. At least I'm going to try. That's my plan anyway. I would rebuy black and white matte board. I destashed a lot of matte board, over half of what I had. I gave it to a local school who wanted it, and because I realized I was picking away at some of the colored matte board, but I pretty much just ordered in black and white whenever I had to frame something as I ran out of it. So those are things that I would definitely rebuy again as I ran out. And watercolor paper and like my favorite cardstock. So I'm using up a lot of cardstock that I don't love because it's fine for layers, it's fine for this and that, it's fine for jelly printing, but I would definitely not rebuy it. I would just go ahead and rebuy the cardstock that I really love. Even if it's a little bit more per sheet than the cheaper stuff that I can get by with, I'd rather just have 1 or 2 reams of white cardstock and call it good, not have 20 and not even be able to remember what they were. So those are something I'm not going to rebuy. I also wouldn't rebuy chintzy card bases with envelope sets. I've been using those up. I'm almost through all of them and I'm not buying those again just because I prefer a heavier weight card now that I've been making cards for so many years. I really like the feeling of a heavyweight card. So like for my card bases, I love the Recollections cardstock from Michaels, the heavyweight stuff. That's my go-to until they discontinue it. That's going to be my go-to cardstock in white and cream. And then, I'm not too picky for colors, but I'm only buying a color as I run out. I'm not buying the multi-packs anymore. I'm being very particular so I don't end up with a lot of colors that I never use because they were all, included in those multi-packs. If you want more information about things I'm never buying again, I have a 5 things I no longer buy video on YouTube. I'll try to remember to link it down below, but it's in my KonMari playlist. So the things I will not rebuy, I actually wrote it down. I had quite a list here as I went looking around. I wouldn't rebuy embellishments. So what I mean is when like you buy a package of scrapbooking embellishments, and I have been there where I've seen them on clearance and I've totally overbought, and then I'm so sick of looking at those embellishments and using them. By the time I use them up, I don't even want to look at them again. But I find that even with most packages of embellishments, by the time you've used them up, unless they're like a staple, like a neutral colored brad, or just something you're going to use a lot, an eyelet, or like I love those little brads that look like the tops of screws. I love those. I would rebuy those again. But like kind of theme novelty embellishments, once I buy them and use them up, I don't rebuy. They generally are kind of trendy, and so they go out of style. So that's a great reason to use up your embellishments. And then when you go to rebuy, if you go to get more embellishments, get whatever is new and fun. That way you won't feel bad about buying these new ones because you've used up the old ones. So that's something I wouldn't rebuy the exact same thing. Pattern paper. I wouldn't go rebuy the same pattern paper. It doesn't matter how precious you think that pattern paper is. In the amount of time it takes you to use up like a stack of pattern paper, by the time you used it up, you're sick of it. And the styles have changed enough that it wouldn't make sense to rebuy those when there's so many other cuter, newer, fresher things available. So I wouldn't rebuy the same pack of pattern paper. There are some Graphic 45 pattern papers that I might rebuy again, but generally for your run-of-the-mill pattern paper, no, I would just get something new when I went. I wouldn't just rebuy the same. I would not rebuy any of my not favorite supplies. So what I mean by this is that I have a lot of colored pencils and watercolor pencils and markers and things like that, and I love to try different things. I love to test them out. I like to review them. It's a lot of fun for me, and it's actually part of my job, but I wouldn't rebuy those ones that aren't my favorite. So if water-based markers, I'm going to stick to the couple that I really like and just kind of buy one if it wears out, if my previous one wears out, instead of buying a whole set. So I'm not saying that I'm not going to try new brands, because that's something I enjoy, and I tend to pass the ones that that I'm not using on to my children or friends. So it's not really wasteful, but I'm definitely going to use up some brands that I have and not rebuy them because they don't add extra value to my life, where I've got a set of Copics and I like the Blick Studio markers, and there's so many that I like that if I run out of a marker from a brand that's not my favorite, I don't need to replace that. I'm just going to use them up until they're done, or if they can't be refilled, and then call it good, or pass them along to a friend. I wouldn't rebuy items that were not my favorite in that specific genre. Like, pick your favorite colored pencils, pick your favorite markers, pick your favorite watercolor crayons or whatever, and then I just use up the rest and not rebuy them. So I hope that makes sense. I'm not rebuying sets of things I already have, which should go without saying, but you might have like a tin of watercolors and you've used up 4 of the colors out of 12 and think, well, I could buy those 4 colors, but I might as well just buy a whole new set. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to buy like tubes of paint and those colors I need and refill them, because you get to a point where you just have so many containers of things that everything is so compartmentalized and separated that it's less convenient, basically. So that's something I'm not going to buy. Just rebuy the colors that I need open stock. And luckily, most companies, even the craft companies, are coming out with open stock things. Like Prima actually is coming. You can buy just the color you need from their set. You don't have to rebuy the set. I think that's really smart, and I think more craft companies are doing that because they want to build long-term relationships with the customers, and they don't want customers to be discouraged if they actually use something up, which I think that trends in the crafting industry are meant to fly so fast that you never use anything up and you're ready to buy the next thing. But I think they're looking more into like a long-term investment, with their customers and supporting the products that they sell. And I think that's a really good, sustainable trend. And that means there's going to be a lot less in the landfill, and we're going to get a lot more use out of our products. So I am so supportive of that, and I'm so glad to see companies like Crafter's Companion, like the Spectrum Noir line. I'm so happy to see them. And Prima and other companies that have released their products to the craft market, that have decided to release open stock products to keep you from having to go rebuy an entire set or just abandon the line once you've used up a few colors. So well done, craft companies. Oh, I won't rebuy duct tape. I mean, I have quite a bit and I do enjoy using it, but once I've used a pattern up, again, it's kind of like embellishments. I don't want to go get that same pattern again. I might get a solid color again, but I'm going to go look and see what's new and fresh and interesting. The same goes for yarn and fabric. I don't know if I'll be able to use up the yarn I have, because if you pre-buy yarn without a project in mind, you end up with really random mishmash of stuff that can be hard to use up. So once I use that up, I wouldn't rebuy the same yarn, and I'm going to be a lot more mindful about buying yarn, not buying because I find a really great sale, buy something because I have a specific project in mind, buy the quantity needed to complete that project, and then I might end up with a leftover ball or half a leftover ball or something to work into another project, but that's definitely a better way to deal with buying yarn and fabric. I do like fat quarters, but I've never felt the need to rebuy a pattern in fat quarter that I've used up. That's kind of just like, I don't know, I look at that kind of like pattern paper as well. I love to do little projects with fat quarters, but I'm not attached to any of the patterns. I always feel like there's something new and fresh whenever I go to the fabric store, so I'll be able to find something that I like just as well that will be different. Oh my gosh, things I will not buy or rebuy, gimmicky tools. Now they can be fun, and don't get me wrong, I typically don't buy these. They tend to be gifts, and I do enjoy them while I have them, but those are things that I see being kind of, and I'll show you a couple examples here. This stapler, this takes very special, you can't even get the staples for these anymore, but this was called a fascinator, at least I don't think you can, and it puts out these big staple bars, and you know, they're interesting and unique, and I'm going to use up what I have, but I'm not going to go hunt out more of these staple bars when I'm done. I mean, they're fun, and I like them for attaching things to cards, but it's a kind of a big tool, it takes up space, and once I've used up all my staple bars, I'm not buying more. Same goes with, this is actually, and the other thing is some of these companies, oftentimes they discontinue the product, or the company goes out of business and you can't get the products to go with the tool that you purchased. So this is another one. It's fun. It's a little tag curler tool for making memories that, you know, they went out of business a few years ago, but it's this thing and it curls a metal tag around a piece of ribbon. So it's a very specific tool. It's taking up space in my drawer and it only has one function. So once I use up those tags, and maybe even before that, I might pass this on to somebody if I get absolutely sick of those tags, because I had the tool, I had to buy the tags, and because I was afraid this was going to go out of, be discontinued, I bought a bunch of tags on clearance, so I have so many, which is good because I'll have more than I ever want to use, but it's a very specific tool, and I'm definitely staying away from gimmicky specific crafting tools from now on. If I can't do it, if I can't make do with another more useful tool I have, then I really don't need it. It's kind of like the page what's it called, the fuse tool, which is kind of like a wood burning tool. No, I'll use my wood burning tool anytime I want to seal a little packet of sequins or something. I don't need to buy a very specific tool that is going to collect dust in my drawer, my overcrowded drawers, you know. So that's something that I wouldn't rebuy. I wouldn't rebuy foil. I went a little crazy when the foil trend hit, and I got on clearance, or no, on sale. It was like a good sale at Joann's. It was like $2.50 a roll. I got all the colors that they had in these small rolls, and they're a lot of fun to use, but I'm going to be foiling things until I am geriatric before I use up that foil. So even if I did use it up, I wouldn't rebuy it, because I went in way too, I went all in on that trend, and I'm not even close to using up what I have. It's fun though, and I'll use it up because I enjoy using it, but I won't rebuy it. Oh, and the other, I think I already kind of touched on this, just I won't rebuy the crappy cardstock. I already talked about that. I've got a few brands that I really like, and I'm just going to rebuy those as I use them up. And I am using up the stuff I don't really like that much, because it's still cardstock. It still will meet my needs. It's still adding value to my life, but I know there are specific brands that will add more value to my life and that I will enjoy using more. But it doesn't make sense for me to throw away all the cardstock I have just to go out and buy like my favorite cardstock. There's stuff I can use the not favorite cardstock on. You know, printouts, you know, printing templates out, or you know, the projects for the kids that they don't need a marker card for or anything. You know, it's definitely useful, but I'm not going to rebuy it. So I hope you found that helpful, because I know a lot of people would think, if you wouldn't rebuy it, why keep it at all? But things can be useful, even though they might not be things we'll go after and seek out in the future. There's new things coming out all the time, and I know with things like paper and embellishments, I'm just going to go for what's new after I've used up what's old, and sometimes before I've used up what's old, because I don't have the best impulse control, but I'm trying, I'm working towards it. We all are, and I hope you found this helpful. That's all I have to say. That's pretty much just a response to the question I got asked on my last Konmari tour. Things are still going good in decluttering land, but I'm finding I have less and less to declutter, because I feel like I must be getting to that point where I feel comfortable with the amount of things I have, I guess. That's all for today. If you have any questions, or you have any things that you're not going to rebuy after you use up, but you still find add value to your life while you're using them up, leave them in the comments below. I love to hear everybody's things that they're not hung up on, but I just find it very interesting to see what we struggle with, and what we enjoy using, and what we could just get rid of any day now. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.